The Hartford Online Radio Network. On the Horn. onthehorn.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Moore, joined by Brian Lee. On News Talk tonight, you're listening to onthehorn.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We are brought to you by Amazon.com, Gateway Financial Partners, Sandits Travel, Sherpa Technologies, Budwitz and Meyerjack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. Well, we haven't had a news show in 2 weeks, and that's because we had a blizzard in Connecticut. I don't know if anybody noticed, but they named the storm Nemo, and it wasn't Captain Nemo either. As a result, the parking lot for our studio was not plowed out, so we couldn't even get to the studio. So you're going to get some news that's perhaps a little stale, but still meaningful, and it has, a lot to do with both technology and taxes. But tonight we're going to be talking about Amazon opening a Connecticut shop. We're going to talk a little bit about Senator McKinney running for governor, maybe, and vinyl making a comeback.
It's true.
But the sound remains the same. Fun with sequestration and how some votes didn't count. And, oh my gosh, someone is calling in. Who could this possibly be?
I say no. Don't answer it. This guy's trouble.
Hello there. Would this happen to be
Oh,
Brian? This would be
yes.
Brian. Hello there.
Hi, can I get a pizza, please? I need a pizza delivered.
Sorry, wrong number.
Oh, crap.
So, as I was saying in the intro, we're talking about how Amazon.com is going to be coming to Connecticut. This was announced in the beginning of the month, but we haven't been able to talk about it because of snowstorms and other fun things. And it's actually kind of a big deal, not only because they're talking about creating a $50 million distribution center somewhere in Connecticut. It hasn't been determined where yet.
I was wondering, because I haven't heard that in any of the news stories that I'd seen, what the location for this place was going to be.
They haven't announced that yet.
Okay.
It would result in jobs for 300 people. Yay.
Yep.
And most importantly, for our budget-conscious people, Amazon has also agreed that it will start collecting Connecticut sales tax as of November 2013.
Nonsense, I tell you, nonsense.
I have plenty of friends who have already said that's it for Amazon with that.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. They're like, that's it. Well, we'll just not get stuff from them anymore. Now,
it kills the whole business model, the whole reason to go to Amazon.
Well,
is so you don't have to pay taxes.
Another part of the reason to go to Amazon is because they have so many things that you can't find anywhere else. If for me, for music, I have two options now. Well, three options. I can try eBay/Craigslist, I can try iTunes or Amazon. That's it. Because the local music store, which we'll discuss later, kind of isn't there right now. We need something else. So I'm frustrated by it, but I'm still going to shop at Amazon. It's not going to change my buying patterns.
The other thing that is impacted is Amazon's affiliates were also refusing to do business in Connecticut.
Oh, that's funny.
Because of the sales tax. And now that Amazon has once again opened the door, the governor is hoping opens the floodgates.
Right.
The affiliates will now also begin to serve Connecticut again. That's including, for instance, shipping.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be able to get the free shipping that you would expect with Amazon anywhere else will now be coming back to Connecticut. The reason it stopped was last year, the state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, decided that it was going to have an internet sales tax that they dubbed the Amazon tax. And the second that the governor signed that bill into law, is the second that Amazon said, no mas. So for about a year...
I hate this idea. I absolutely hate this idea. And it just proves more and more that the people who run Connecticut, the politicians that run Connecticut, are all drug addicts. They're all drug addicts. And their crack is money. They have ruined this state. They have sent it down all the way to the bottom. I don't know how we're going to get out of this trouble, but what do? They say, hey, we want more. Give us more. We want more of your money so we can spend it irrationally. Nonsense. It's crap. They shouldn't do it, and I hate them for it. They should all go to jail. They're a bunch of freaking drug addicts.
So Amazon is kind of on board with them. Does Amazon have to go to jail for being a drug pusher?
No,
Just
poor
saying.
Amazon's trying to do something nice, like give people jobs in Connecticut. And for that reward, you know what they say? Oh, no, we're going to muscle you around, so we want sales tax on that. Nonsense. Nonsense. That stuff wasn't made in Connecticut. That's nonsense. It's being purchased over the Internet. Doesn't matter if they're in Canada. Doesn't matter if they're in India. Doesn't matter if they're in Chicago. Connecticut should not get anything from that. That is terrible.
I thought there'd be more jobs.
Given the fact that there is now going to be an actual brick and mortar location that is this $50 million distribution center, which, by the way, will also add to whichever local community is lucky enough to get them. They will then have real estate taxes coming to them courtesy of Amazon.com as well.
That's great. Well, good for the state and good for the town that gets it. That's terrific. I love that. But here's what I hate. I hate the government basically acting like Tony Soprano and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you can come to Connecticut. We're going to shake you down.
You got to pay a little vig.
About Connecticut is open for business. The door is open. We're business friendly. They are so full of it. They're so full of it. They can't even get rid of this dumb little shakedown of every small business in Connecticut called the business entity tax, which is criminal. It says, oh, just for the privilege that you have of getting screwed by the state of Connecticut on your local taxes, we're also going to give you a business entity tax for $250 a year, just, for the heck of it. I don't know, because you exist. What's coming to Connecticut next is the birth tax. Parents, beware. If you want to have another kid, the state of Connecticut is going to tax you when your child is born. It's going to be a $10,000 tax on having a new child in Connecticut. That's what's coming. That's what these crack whores do. That's what they do.
This rant was brought to you by Amazon.com and Sandits Travel. Get the heck out of here. Well,
by the way, we love Amazon, and they are one of our sponsors, and they are great. They have great stuff called Amazon Web Services, and you should check it out if you need to put stuff on the internet and grab it quickly and share it quickly. You can't do a Google Drive for everything. If you want to share it with the masses, you got to find some place to put it that you can pay for bandwidth and storage. Amazon is the place. Amazon Web Services. It's great, and I have no problem with that. I buy a lot of my Christmas gifts off of Amazon. I buy stuff constantly off it. It's a great company. They have another company called Zappos, which is also terrific for women and men and child and children's clothing. Zappos.com, great place. We've talked to them. Super high on customer service. State of Connecticut, big fat piece of crap. That's what it is.
The opinions voiced by Brian Parker are not necessarily the opinions of onthehorn.com.
Even though Brian Parker owns onthehorn.com.
Shh. Your lawyer is telling you shh. Nonetheless.
No, they're all drug addicts. I hate them. I hate them all.
Well, we're apparently dealing with a similar problem on the federal level as well as at the state level. And a lot of that's going to be coming to a head fairly soon. That's another news piece that's coming up momentarily. One of the things that I also wanted to bring to light, that I was going to bring to light last week, but for the snow, was the fact that on Face the State with Dennis House on WFSB, he had an interview with the Senate Minority Leader, fellow by the name of John McKinney, who hails from Fairfield. One of the towns in his district happens to be Newtown. He pretty much announced that he was going to run for governor in 2014. The thing is, it isn't official yet. The official announcement may come out this spring. So in another month or two, we may hear about that. But Senator McKinney was very much on the same wavelength as is Brian Parker, in that Governor Malloy, and this is a quote, has brought us nothing more than higher taxes and more spending. The state is going in the wrong direction. The Face the State airing was on February 10th. Senator McKinney is the second Republican to unofficially announce his intention to run for governor, the first being former ambassador and 2010 Republican gubernatorial candidate Tom Foley. Senator McKinney said that he would formally start his campaign in the spring of 2013. There are other possible candidates. The most vocal thus far, aside from Senator McKinney, is House Minority Leader Larry Cafaro. Other possibilities are former Lieutenant Governor Michael Fedeli and Danbury Mayor Mark Boughton.
Mark Boughton wins that hands down. I love Fedeli. I think our former Lieutenant Governor, great guy. Won the let's see, how'd it go? He won the nomination but lost the primary, or won the primary, lost the nomination.
Won the nomination, lost the primary.
Lost the primary, which was odd, but you're up against a gajillionaire. So what are you going to do? But Mark Boughton, here's the problem though. The state of Connecticut is too dumb to elect him. We're too dumb to elect someone good like Mark Boughton.
So far, we
were also too dumb to vote for Curry when he was running. So I'm not just being like a Republican fanboy. And we also were too dumb to put the New Haven mayor, DeStefano, up there when he was running. What was that? 8 years ago or something.
Yep.
Like those were. So there's two Democrats, one Republican. So I'm not just being a conservative fanboy. People that would have been great for the state of Connecticut. No, we're too dumb. We're too dumb to do it.
So thus far tonight, we have insulted the state legislature, the governor,
yes.
and the voters.
Everyone in the state of Connecticut.
Excellent.
That votes.
I didn't say anything bad about Malloy. I'll tell you what. Malloy, I think, started off great, and I think what happened was Republicans were just going to, they're just going to hate him because he's not a Republican. And Democrats hate him because he was trying to do good things, which were against some of the Democratic ideas. I think the governor's lonely, and he's just looking for friends now, so he's starting to do crazy things like, busways and sales taxes and all this kind of nonsense. I think he's lonely.
A funny thing happened on the way to the Capitol. Senator McKinney has indicated that he is right now going to be focusing on Newtown, which is understandable since it's in his district, as well as the current legislative session. Neither Senator McKinney nor Ambassador Foley can raise money for a campaign until they have set up an exploratory committee, which neither have done as of yet. So we have two unofficial announcements in the last 30 days as far as who the potential opponents would be for the gubernatorial race in 2014. What is also interesting is that the governor's office is picking up on these unannounced interests.
Announcements.
And in fact, whenever Senator McKinney and or Representative Cafaro have criticized the governor's budget or the way the governor is doing things, the response is almost immediately, well, they have their sights set on higher office. That's why they're saying this. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think McKinney should concentrate on Newtown and not start thinking about running for governor. Because you know what I fear is that I would fear that this gets, and maybe justly, but I don't know, this gets equated to him trying to take advantage of the tragedy to improve his career.
I actually thought the same thing.
Yeah.
It crossed my mind. As you said, that was part of his district. That was the first thing that crossed my mind. As bad as it sounds for me to think like that was the first thing that came across my mind.
I think the press is being very nice about it right now. I don't think they're bringing that up. Me, on the other hand, I'm just a bag of food, so I'll bring it up. But that's my fear, is that he is looking to leverage the media coverage of Newtown to increase his career. And that would be sad. But I got to run, guys. But have a good show.
Hey, thank you, Brian, and drive safe. Well,
we made a lot of friends on that call.
One of the other things that the Danbury mayor has to worry about is almost the same thing, given the fact that Danbury and Newtown are practically neighbors.
Yeah. I don't think that'll play as much.
Not as hard.
It's not in his district.
Right. It's not in his bailiwick, so to speak.
Right.
So, vinyl records?
Yes, sir, my friend.
They're coming back?
The question is this. When was the last time you fired up the old Victrola?
A long time ago.
Do you have a turntable at the house?
I think I do not.
Okay.
I do have an old stereo.
Yep.
That was AM/FM cassette.
Yep.
And it had a little turntable that would pop out.
Okay.
And I had a problem replacing the needle.
Yep.
So I think it's actually at my father's house.
Okay. For my birthday was 2 weeks ago, and for my birthday, my wife said, you've been talking about getting a turntable for the longest time. Hey, what do you think? Here's the deal. Get whatever you want. Do the research, which I love doing. Do the research, and let's give it a listen. You've got all those albums, and I still say album. I have a hard time saying CDs or whatever. So let's see what happens. So doing all the research and getting what I wanted led me to start doing more research into album sales and where do we go to find stuff. There really aren't, as I mentioned on the music show, there really aren't that many places to get music like there used to be. There isn't a Strawberries or a Coconuts or those like mass media type places. Best Buy doesn't really carry music. That's not what they want to sell you. They want to sell you refrigerators and computers and stuff like that.
They want to sell you players.
Right.
But not the music.
Right. Big ticket items more so than the individuals, like stuff like that.
Right.
So I did a little poking around to find out that vinyl sales have been on the rise for 5 years now. And I'm like, come on, that's impossible. So here's the numbers. Vinyl sales, they expected, this article is from October. The increase in vinyl sales for 2012 was 16.3% to get it over 4.5 million sold.
Wow.
Right, exactly. Now, I didn't even think that anybody was doing anything with vinyl anymore. So I'm like, all right, well, let's see what the end result was. So it wasn't up the 16.3 that they thought it was going to. It was up 17.7%, which got it closer to 5 million sold.
Wow.
Now, here's the thing. That doesn't take into consideration your used music stores, like the fantastic Integrity in Music. And if you ever decide that you want to start listening to albums again, please go see Ed, because the stuff they have in Integrity is fantastic. It doesn't take into that the used sales. It doesn't take your eBay sales. It doesn't take your Craigslist trade stuff. Or I don't know if you've ever gone walking on the streets in New York City and just happened to find a street vendor there with the latest wares. But it doesn't take into consideration any of that. Right. So that's just the brand new stuff that's being sold. Almost 5 million things this year. What is that?
New stuff.
Yeah. Brand new stuff. A month ago at Sally's, we brought in a band called Miss Tess and the Talkbacks. They were wonderful. They had already sent me their entire disc to play on the Black Eyed and Blue show. The first thing I did when I went over to see her merch table was I was like, really? Vinyl? I'll buy a copy. Played it. Here's the thing. We all have this idea in our head of how bad vinyl sounded.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't. It actually sounds pretty good. Considering I bought a much better quality needle than came with the stock player back in the 80s when most people bought their stuff. So I bought an audiophile grade needle. It was pricey, and I don't care because it makes all that stuff have this ability to jump out of the stereo now. The pops and crackles and hisses are gone. These are recordings that weren't mine. These are recordings that were given to me from the late 60s. Bob Marley's Exodus. I have a vinyl copy of Bob Marley Exodus that sounds incredible. There's that pop and hiss at the beginning of the song.
Yep.
So it wasn't ever actually the player that sounded like crap. It was the needle. So I'll bet if you find a needle, go dig up your old record player someday. You've got to have albums around the house. I know you love music.
I do.
I know you love music. I would definitely say upgrade your needle. If you want somebody to come fix it, I'll change it for you. I don't care. It's easy. It was a 5-minute deal because the one that I bought came with its own needle. Pull out the cartridge, add the new one, done.
Yep.
That easy. But vinyl is back, and it's back big. It is actually taking away from CD sales. CD sales are down 13%.
And the whole reason why CDs were touted as the next best thing beyond
was
vinyl
supposed to be the sound quality.
Correct.
The problem is that there is, even listening to the same recordings, and I prove this at my house, even listening to the same recordings, there is a warmth that comes through the speakers with the vinyl that you just don't get with anything digital. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's such a homey feeling. And I'm sitting there the other day drinking a Miller High Life, listening to vinyl, and I'm thinking, I said to my wife, shouldn't we be watching like the Watergate hearings or something? So it just made perfect sense. I was like, what? Yeah. Vinyl's back, and vinyl's back big. So start looking for it. And again, if you see one of these little record shops in town, find somebody that you know who still listens to the stuff and support these guys, for goodness sakes. These businesses there's a few of them that are starting to open up in Connecticut. Daphne Lee Martin, who we've had at Sally's before as an artist, she's wonderful. She's got a shop that just opened up, I guess, within the last year down in New London. So next time I'm down in town, I'm going to try and get in to see that, and I'm going to get out and see Edit Integrity tomorrow. So that's it for me for my little 5 minutes of silliness on this show. Dust off the old stuff.
Who knew?
Here's the other thing. None of us ever did this when we were young. Clean the thing off before you play it.
Yep.
Just a quick wipe.
Yep.
Little piece of velvet, little piece of something. It'll sound like it never has, like you never realized it could.
A little bit of trivia.
Yep.
The old saying, hold the phone.
Yep.
They weren't talking about the telephone.
Oh, no, it was the gramophone.
They were talking about the gramophone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because invariably, in the really old days, you'd hear, hold the phone, and then you'd hear, whoop,
yeah.
as the needle would trace across.
Yep.
We have a generation and a half of people who have no idea what vinyl sound is all about.
Nope.
It's all digital. And therein is part of what you were talking about as far as the warmth that you get from listening to vinyl that you don't get with the computerized, digitized sound. It is digitally perfect, but it is not necessarily
to the ear
audio perfect.
Yep. There's a movie out. I talked about it on my show a few weeks ago, and you and I had discussed it a little bit off air. The movie's called Sound City. Dave Grohl from Nirvana produced it. It's about the Sound City studio in Van Nuys, California. If you love music and you love the whole ins and outs and the nuts and bolts of recording, watch it. And then go listen to some of the stuff that came out of this studio. And I think you will be very, very, very surprised at how good some of these old recordings actually sound on what we always thought was crappy vinyl.
Yep. And let's also keep in mind that the way that music used to be transposed was you would have tapes.
Yep.
Master tapes.
Yep.
Which would then be recorded onto the vinyl.
And it was usually a short distance that the sound waves had to travel. You know, it was through cable, in some cases just 8 to 10 feet, which is kind of what they showed you in the documentary Sound City.
Yep.
So
and
it's
one of
cool
our
stuff.
listeners is noting that digital recordings lose sonic fidelity.
Without
There you
question. Without question. What is this? I haven't heard of vinyl since I was like 5 years old. I pulled stuff out, and my wife was laughing at me. I pulled stuff out last week. When I was in high school, which is when I started my big album collection, I was more of a metal guy. That was what I listened to. But I had friends who were DJs, so I'm pulling out like the SOS Band and Atlantic Star, New Shoes, which she continues to mock me about. But there's also Bon Jovi's first album, like album, Queensryche. And
oh my God.
And right, but this is their EP. This isn't even like the album. This is the 4-song vinyl. And it was Motley Crue's first album, Too Fast for Love. This was, and everybody thought that there was the second. That was actually the first thing that they had released on vinyl, and it's the greatest sounding garage sound I've ever heard of any band. So good stuff.
For example, kids these days don't know what LP means.
Nope.
Or EP.
EP. Nope.
Long playing, extended playing.
They won't know what a 78 is.
Nope.
There are probably people who are my generation who don't know what a 78 is.
My father still has 78s.
I have some of my grandfathers.
Wow.
And with my player, you hit 33 and 45 at the same time, and it allows you to play a 78.
72. Oh, 78. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What's a 78? You damn kids.
Well, we've got a little bit more news, but we're going to jump to a break right now so that we can actually pay some bills, because this isn't free, folks. But we'll be back momentarily.
A 21st century audio pioneer, Hartford Online Radio Network. onthehorn.com.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
And we're also brought to you by Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Have you been to the only fish market in Farmington Valley? Deepwater is located on Route 44 and is open 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. One of the best things about Deepwater is their fish are fresh. 3 deliveries daily to meet your needs. Deepwater has a menu of grilled fish items, scampi, fish and chips, soups, bisques, and chowders. For your catering needs, authentic paella, cedar plank salmon sides, and always the traditional New England clam bake. Deepwater also has the very best shrimp cocktail that you'll find anywhere. Call in your order at 860-676-9657, and they'll have your order ready for pickup when you arrive. Deepwater Seafood of Avon, not just for the halibut. And we're also brought to you by CentralCTDental.com, Doctors Camp, Sambor, and Lupini. For serious issues or routine checkups, go nowhere else. Easy to get to on the Plainville-Farmington line. Call 860-747-5761 or make an appointment online at centralctdental.com. And we're back. Now, one of the fun things that we've been dealing with, for the last year in federal politics, as well as state politics, is budgeting fun. Well, we're about to deal with something that is not really that fun at all. It's what I call Fiscal Cliff Part 2. That's 2. for those of you. The sequestration dance. Now, you guys out there are probably thinking to yourselves, okay, here we go again. He's going to talk about the budget and politics at the same time. This isn't good. But for those of us in Connecticut, the sequestration is really an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the automatic budget cuts, which are the sequestrations, go through on March 1st, that's not this coming Friday, but the following Friday, $1 trillion will be automatically cut from the federal budget. When you're dealing with $4 trillion, that's a quarter of the spending. Okay. Well, it can't be all that bad, saith thee. They're talking about, for instance, not sending a carrier group from Virginia. They were scheduled to sail like today. They are not sending them out because of the potential budget cuts to the defense spending. These guys were supposed to go to the Persian Gulf. So anybody who says that the sequestration isn't going to have an immediate impact on our defense readiness, guess what? It is. And why are we concerned about it here in Connecticut? Because a significant majority of our manufacturing in Connecticut is defense-oriented. You know, like the submarines, the jet engines,
Helicopters,
tanks, Hamilton Standard. That's all going to get hit and hit pretty hard, which means suddenly the contracts that everybody's been relying on to employ people are going to be shut down, which means that a lot of people could suddenly find themselves unemployed. This is a bad thing. Now, the president and congressional Republicans have been trading jabs over who is responsible for the problem of the sequestration unless Congress and the president sign legislation before March 1st. This might be difficult to do given that Congress is in recess.
Right.
They're in recess all week long. Now, we're talking about a fiscal problem of biblical proportions, really.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that if something like this, all right, let's put it this way. If we knew that someone was planning an attack of the United States a week away, would Congress be on recess?
One would hope no, but they deserve their time off.
All right. The president did take a vacation this last weekend. Played quite a few rounds of golf down in Florida. And the first lady and the first daughters were up in Colorado skiing. Those ladies deserve some time off.
Right.
The president, not when you got this thing looming.
I am disappointed in both sides on this one. Okay, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it, folks. We put them in office. They're supposed to be there for us, right? Isn't that the idea of the way things work here?
The problem that I'm seeing too is that the sequestration is a result of a bill that was passed into law in 2011. We're talking about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the president rightfully says, "Hey, it wasn't me. Congress passed this bill." Except for one thing. He's the one that signed it into law.
Exactly. That's the thing. Stop with this pissing contest.
Stop pointing the fingers.
Sit down. Lock them in a room for a weekend. I guarantee this thing gets done. Nobody leaves. Food's not getting ordered. Let's nail this out. Please.
Send plenty of coffee.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
We want them to be somewhat
I don't care how they do it, but lock them in a room, both sides. No one leaves this room until this thing gets hammered out.
Now, the president has offered to compromise. But the Republicans correctly point out that he hasn't said where he would compromise.
maybe if they were sitting at the same table, they would know where he would compromise. And I'm sure that the Republicans are also willing to compromise, and they're not telling him where. Again, lock them in a room. Throw away the key until there's an agreement made. This is ridiculous.
Thus far, there has been little movement on the Republican side and barely perceptible movement on the Democratic side. The result is the dark side of the fiscal cliff, and it was self-imposed by them.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Now, what we really are seeing is both sides essentially playing political chicken.
Yeah. Again.
And the American people are the ones that are going to be paying for the mistakes or misguided assumptions on our political leaders' part. And there's no election coming up that we can hold over them and say, you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to throw you out. They've got 2 years. Oh, joy.
And we don't actually have the nerve to get them out of office, because we just get so used to these guys being there. You've had the opportunity to vote plenty of these clowns out, and we haven't. We just keep sending them back, sending them back, sending them back.
In the last election, the Democrats picked up 2 seats in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
In the last election, the Democrats picked up 15 seats in the House.
Mm-hmm.
They needed 25.
Yep.
In order for there to be any kind of a change. What has been proven thus far in the scant legislation that has actually been passed into law with the new session. By the way, the last session was the least productive Congress
ever
in modern history.
Yeah, ever.
The first couple of Congresses passed less laws, but they didn't have that much to work with, so you can't blame them. But what has been proven is that the Speaker does not have control of his side of the aisle. The Republican caucus is now splintering in about 3 different factions.
Yep.
And in order to pass any legislation, the Speaker has had to reach out to the Democratic side. There have been enough Democrats to actually join in on the fun, so there is some possibility of legislation coming relatively soon that could deal with this. But there is no guarantee, as they say down in Nolens. And it was specifically the Sandy bill that passed with, in a sense, bipartisan votes.
Right.
That almost didn't pass because the Republicans were having a hard time bringing the bill actually down onto the floor in the House. It had already passed the Senate once. It was going to pass the Senate again once the House did their thing. But enough of the Tea Party faction was kicking up a lot of dust for Boehner to really say, I don't want to do this. Until Pelosi basically said, do it and you'll have enough Democrats to back you up on this. What that means, however, is we may be dealing with gridlock within the Republican Party, not just Congress, within the Republican Party.
So I know that we've got a Boehner faction. Obviously, we believe that there's also a Cantor faction.
Correct.
Third splinter, because you said probably 3 at least.
Tea Party.
I don't count them anymore.
There's still 25 votes.
Yeah.
It's a large enough block when you only have a 10-vote margin to actually impact what can and cannot come to the floor.
Okay.
Therein lies the problem. And it's going to take a political spine on the part of both sides' leadership to actually say, okay, this needs to be done for the country. Let's do it. Thus far, we haven't seen much evidence of a political spine. And it will impact Connecticut directly and in a devastating way.
Yep.
We thought that our state budget problems were bad. Ain't nothing going to compare to what's coming down the road in less than 2 weeks.
Not if we can't get contracts.
So let's do something about that, people. Really? Now, there was an interesting story that came out through ctnewsjunkie.com, which, by the way, is the source of a lot of my news stories. Want to give them credit. The last one, the sequestration, I got from our friends at First Read. But this from CT News Junkie, more military votes didn't count. And there is a technical fix for the voting if we actually allow for it. Sergeant Kevin Townley tried to vote while deployed to the United Arab Emirates last fall, but his ballot got lost in the mail and so was never counted. Townley is not happy with the turn of events and said, "I just like to have my vote counted." The Connecticut Secretary of State's office actually investigated and found that Townley was not the only one getting his vote lost. He was joined by 40% of the absentee ballots sent to military members overseas. Talk about disenfranchisement.
Huh.
Now, some of the ballots were lost on the way over, but there is a current law now that allows for ballots to be faxed and or emailed.
Okay.
So they could get to the service personnel via current 21st century technology, but the law doesn't allow for them to be faxed back or emailed back. They have to be mailed back. Therein lies the rub. Almost a vast majority of the ballots that were sent over got lost coming back. Now, this has prompted a new bill to be proposed that would allow servicemen and women to return their ballots by fax or email. Currently, they can receive the ballots by fax or email, but they have to send it by regular mail. The pending bill would make the returning ballots by fax or email optional. That means if they wanted to maintain their secret ballot, they could still choose to send it by snail mail.
Okay.
But the bill would give them the option to use current technology. The problem is it ain't secret once it's emailed back or faxed back. And that was that was one of two primary problems that the governor had when a similar bill was passed last year, and he vetoed it. He vetoed it because there were the potential for technical problems either sending or receiving, and the loss of the secret ballot aspect, because that is actually a constitutional right.
How about we do this as a fix? They take the people who are registered voters, put them also into a room, and just tally up the votes randomly, and then you don't have anyone knowing who anyone else voted for. One person and an overseer count the votes, and then just email 17 and 36. Done. Then you haven't lost any of your anonymity. There isn't anything that's coming from anything but a central location of where the votes were counted.
I don't have a problem with that. I also don't have a problem with a voter saying, you know what, I don't care if someone sees who I voted for. If they are enacting the option, they know that they are waiving their right to a secret ballot.
Right.
There are plenty of times when we will voluntarily give up certain constitutional rights. Mm-hmm. It happens all the time in criminal court. If someone is accepting a plea deal, they are waiving their right to a jury trial. They are waiving their right to avoid self-incrimination. These are two of the cornerstones of constitutional rights for individuals. Yep. Why isn't a service personnel individual not allowed to waive his or her right to a secret ballot if they want to vote and they know that this is the way that their vote's going to get counted? It doesn't make sense to use this constitutional basis as a reason for vetoing the bill.
You could even do the sending the Chad type ballot for them to vote. Pop your things out and hand it in, in a manila folder, then you haven't lost any of your anonymity. Your paper looks like my paper, looks like his paper. It's all the same thing. Again, somebody else handles the counting. Done.
The other thing that could be done is either via fax and or via email, is that the ballot has two components. The first component is the identification of the voter, so that the registrar of voters can verify that this person is a legitimate voter and that this is a legitimate vote.
Mm-hmm.
The second component, a separate page, could be the actual vote. And all the registrar has to do is take the first page, actually have both pages in like a manila envelope.
Yep.
And just take out the first page, verify the vote. Okay, it's good. Now the envelope goes to someone else to do the counting. And then you maintain the secret ballot at that point.
Yeah. There's enough ways that they can figure this one out. There really is. There's enough ways that they can figure this out.
You would think in this day and age, you would hope in this day and age, and for God's sakes, for the folks who are actually serving our country, who are not able to physically be here, give them their damn vote.
Let's get it right for them.
Of all the folks who deserve to have their vote counted, they're the ones who deserve it the most.
Yep.
Now, another one of our fun news items is apparently Connecticut's junior senator, and he's only junior by 2 years.
I was going to say not by much, but yeah.
Is taking on the NRA. Apparently, Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, whose 5th district, when he was the congressional representative, the 5th district included Newtown. This is one of the reasons why he is madder than a Mad Hatter as far as what is going on. He found out that an NRA lobbyist basically said, we need to wait for the Connecticut effect to die down. That put a bee in Murphy's bonnet. And he then immediately thereafter said, you know what? Stop. The Connecticut effect is not something that you guys should be bandying about as if it is a political strategy to work around.
Yep.
The Connecticut effect is 27 people who died. And you can't get around the fact that 20 of them were first graders.
Yep.
So stop with this. And he has actually been doing his best to convince his current colleagues and to convince his former colleagues in the House that the NRA is not this giant that you have to fear anymore. The statistics are actually supporting him. Of the candidates that were supported by the NRA as specifically gun rights advocates,
Yep.
2% of them got elected. 98% did not.
Really?
They spent millions upon millions of dollars and only got 2%. So, and then comes the statistic, the poll, granted, not a, we'll qualify that as a statistic. Polls have been showing that the rank and file NRA are actually in favor of some of the gun restrictions that are being proposed. Like, for instance, a more thorough background check. Like, for instance, an assault weapon ban. Because they know they don't need an AK-47 to take down Bambi.
I will be honest with you. This is something that's been debated since December at, where else? The bar I work at.
Yep.
And trust me, the people that I hear day in, day out who are gun enthusiasts aren't willing to budge on any of their rights. They believe that the video game people are to blame, more so than the gun people. They hang on to the guns don't kill people, people kill people And look, it doesn't matter to me. I don't own a gun. I'm never going to own a gun. I don't find the need for a gun.
You've
It's
been
just
trained
me.
to use one.
Absolutely. I was in the Army.
Right.
I was in the Army, so I choose not to. It's not what I want. It's not for me. So I've shot. I enjoy shooting occasionally, but it's been a long time. So.
Now, what Murphy is trying to basically do is to show that the tiger that he's got by the tail is really more of a paper tiger than anything else. And that is why he is essentially calling the NRA out. And in a sense, he points out, for instance, that the NRA had supported the mandatory universal background checks in 1999, and now they're dead set against it. He has pointed out that the gun lobby in the early days didn't have a problem with limiting magazine capacity. Not so anymore. The high velocity ammunition, that they've been fairly consistent about.
Right.
That they said, no, you can't mess with that. However, the real tale of the tape is going to be what happens as far as legislation in the next 6 to 9 months. Now, various states have already come out. New York just passed, and Governor Cuomo signed into law one of the most restrictive gun laws in the United States. And it was an outright assault weapon ban. There was a limitation on the magazine clips. There was a limitation on what you could shoot as far as ammunition was concerned. And calling for a very stringent background check, more so than what we were dealing with on the federal level. And as a result, Governor Cuomo has taken a very significant hit as far as his approval numbers are concerned. He was in the mid-70s. He now barely cracks 48%.
Yeah.
That will tell you, more than anything else, the power of the gun lobby. It's much more diffused than the NRA would like you to believe.
Yeah.
They would like you to believe that they are the gospel according to the Second Amendment. They are proving that they're not. But we cannot discount the fact that there is a wider lobby than just the NRA. And that is the buzzsaw that Senator Murphy is likely going to be running himself into.
Yeah, I find that a really hard battle for him to win.
And last but not least, we had, after the Newtown Massacre, a super committee formed that was made up of all of the legislative leadership, both on the House and the Senate side, as well as additional constituents, if you will, in the mix. And this super committee was set up to come up with proposals for the House and the Senate to look at. They were given a deadline. And that deadline was something that everybody agreed was doable. Not so much anymore. It appears as though the super committee is getting bogged down. Now, part of the problem was Storm Nemo, the blizzard of 2013. That interfered with public hearings. It interfered with committees actually getting together because they have 3 subcommittees. One subcommittee deals with mental health, one subcommittee deals with school safety, one subcommittee deals with guns. All 3 of them were impacted by the weather. They have not been able to meet either in those 3 subcommittees or as the main committee as a whole yet. They're getting close to being able to finalize their report, but it's not going to happen.
What was the deadline?
I'm looking through the story at this point in time. Normally, it's stated. Let's see. It was apparently supposed to be at the end of this month. So, you can't really blame them because of Mother Nature. But you would think that, okay, this is a big deal.
Yes.
This is something that has gained broad support throughout the state. Well over 70% of the population supports doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You would think with that they would then put a certain level of priority on what it is that they're doing. There is this other small factor involved. They're in session right now.
No.
The speaker is kind of needed to show up at, the legislature to run things.
Bang the gavel or whatever.
Yeah. And, the Senate President pro tempore is required to actually show up to the Senate from time to time, too. So I get that. Nonetheless, I would think that just like I would like my federal congressional folks to get locked up in a room and throw away the key until they've made a decision on the sequestration, I wouldn't mind if the super committee actually did the same thing and say, okay, this is the thing that has the most priority right now. This is what people have been calling for. Let's do it.
I understand there was an issue with the weather. There's a thing that we use here called Skype. Really?
Yeah.
You guys haven't figured that one out? My dad, who is the least technological person that I know next to my mom, Skypes with my uncle all the time.
Wow.
If he can figure it out, how come these guys can't? How hard is this? We have every technological advantage. How about we start taking advantage of them and stop making excuses? Get stuff done.
For instance, the gun subcommittee was holding hearings up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. Kudos to you guys for burning the midnight oil.
Sure.
Nonetheless, you can't please everybody. I get that too. And yeah, certain constituencies are going to be limited to 3 minutes of presentation or testimony at a hearing. I get that too. And maybe that's not as fair as it should be. But if you're limiting a lobbyist to 3 minutes, shucky darn. I'm having a little less sympathy under those situations. Now, part of the basic thing about this super committee was that it was set up to be bipartisan.
Right.
And therefore you need to hear from all sides.
All sides.
I get that too. And House Republican leader Lawrence Cafaro, one of the 4 legislative leaders who will help decide what recommendations end up in the supercommittee's bill, has indicated that there have been a number of controversial proposals introduced this session, especially regarding gun control, but these ideas will have the chance to go through the traditional legislative process. That wasn't the purpose of the task force. Early on, we asked, what can we do as Republicans and Democrats with broad consensus? Otherwise, it is not a bipartisan bill. Cafaro is still optimistic that the final product would be an effective piece of legislation that most members could get behind. It's just going to be a little late. Okay, I get that. Let's not make it too late. That's all I'm saying. Well, it's been a fun hour, folks. You've been listening to News Talk Tonight. I'm Dave Moore. I've been joined by Brian Lee. and you have basically listened to politics, music. Next week, we might even talk about sports.
Oh, at some point, there's going to be a definite baseball discussion between two of us who love the game.
And are from opposite sides of the fence.
And are both reading the same book. And we're probably hearing two different things while we're reading it.
Actually, I don't think so.
I don't either. It's awesome. I love the way it's written. So.
It's one of those things. It's not a book that the kids can read.
No.
But if you like baseball, you got to pick it up.
Yep.
You've been listening to us on The Horn, onthehorn.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We are brought to you by Amazon.com, Gateway Financial Partners, Sandits Travel, Shipper Technologies, Budwitz and Meyerjack, CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.